It's ironic.
What's that?
Both Amber and I agreed that we wouldn't hand over the Guardian, no matter what.
I know.
It's not right. The guy's crazy. He doesn't understand.
But that was before the kidnap.
Does that make any difference? If it wasn't right before, how can it suddenly be right now?
But that's not the point, Bray. Everyone expects him to be handed over.
But if Amber was here, she wouldn't allow that.
But she's not here. You're the leader, Bray. You have to decide.
Welcome to Series 3, Episode 39 of Conversation on Eagle Mountain, a podcast about the tribe. I'm your host, Lance, and joining the podcast panel today is Liz.
Hello.
Sabine.
Hi.
And Tamsin.
Hello.
We have episode notes done by Matt and myself. So Series 3, Episode 39, the screenplay was done by Harry Duffin. It was directed by John Reed, and the episode synopsis were read out by myself. Ray must make a decision on whether to hand over the Guardian, but struggles with conflicting advice. Jack pulls out all the stops for Ellie, while May feels like she doesn't belong in the mall. We are going to talk a lot about Ellie in this episode, so let's kick things off with this first moment in the show.
Are you okay? You are happy Jack's back, aren't you?
Of course.
You don't look it. This thing with you and Luke.
That's over, Alice. There was never anything in it.
What about you and Jack?
I don't know. I mean, I'd almost got used to the idea that I'd never see him again. All that time spent waiting and hoping. I just built it up so much in my mind.
So yeah, let's start with that panel. How do you feel about Ellie confiding her feelings to her sister, and what do you make of them?
I think her feelings make perfect sense. You know, I don't know how Alice could be so dismissive of her sister's feelings here. Like she's saying, you know, what she says about Luke, she's trying to convince herself that what she feels for him can't be real. I just felt sorry for him because he was trying so hard to fix the mess of the Chosen that the Guardian made. So she's trying to convince herself, I can't care about him. It wouldn't make sense if I care about him like that. I must have just felt sorry for the guy because he, you know, did everything he could to make the situation better. And that must be what I'm feeling. And then admitting, maybe I built things up with Jack. I got so used to missing him. I got so used to him not being here. I even got used to the idea that I was probably never going to see him again. She's describing mourning. She's describing she grieved him. She went through the grief process of Jack, you know, and is surprised to realize that she reached the end of that grief process. And then he came back. It's like coming back from the dead. And you can't pick up where you left off. And that's a sad place for her to be. Like, her feelings make sense. And she's trying to express them and have someone help clarify what she feels, you know? Unfortunately, Alice is just like, oh, yeah, okay, just go for it. Like, what kind of advice is that? You would have never given that to her in season 2.
No.
You would have listened to her. You would have engaged her in conversation. You would have asked her to tell you more. Your advice to her would have been much more heartfelt instead of so dismissive.
I mean, from my perspective, I would say that my issue is not with... I totally agree with everything that you have said, Liz, about Ellie's perspective. And my issue is the way Alice responds, like you say. And I think that this would have been a good opportunity for the writers to finally let up some of the slack on Ellie because of how the fandom have kind of feel about her at this time because of what's going on. And for Alice to take a bit of responsibility to what led to this whole situation in the first place. But you don't get that. Like you say, she just passes it off.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's annoying that Alice just, doesn't seem to truly listen to what her sister's going through. It's not right. But on the other end, I'm sorry, I can't get over Ellie's whole, I don't know about Jack. He's been gone way too long. I get it.
So your feelings for someone have never changed like that?
It feels so unfair to Jack that he's going, he wasn't around, so,
Maybe it's unfair to him, but it's not like he's owed a relationship. It sucks. It sucks. It really does. It sucks that
Yeah.
Jack went away and he's still in love.
Mm-hmm.
That does suck. But that Ellie not loving him anymore doesn't make her a bad person. That she wasn't able to hold the flame.
Mm.
That just happens. It doesn't mean you can't feel sorry for Jack that he came home to this, but that doesn't make Ellie a villain, that her feelings for him died.
I would also add as well that Ellie and Jack were they were kind of younger than Ellie is with Luke. And I wonder if there's a sort of burgeoning element that she would like to sleep with Luke. And she didn't feel that with Jack so much because she was younger and she didn't maybe have those feelings so much. It was more just kissing and hand holding and he's my boyfriend, like when you're 12 or 13. But when you are 15, 16, 17, the way you view a relationship is kind of different and the things that you want from it are kind of different. So I wonder if that's also playing into it. But I agree with you, Liz. No one is owed a relationship. And I also agree that she did that grieving and essentially kind of had to move on from it because Jack wasn't around and she didn't know. She thought he was dead, So you can understand why she feels the way she does.
He was told several times that he wasn't dead, that messages could be sent to him.
That's true.
Yeah.
Again, though, I don't think it makes her a bad person that she just doesn't feel that way about him anymore.
I
do wonder this, though. I wonder if we would look at the story different, if people would look at Ellie's situation differently, if Luke hadn't been involved. Like, just instead of making it a new romance getting in the way of an old romance, what if there had been no Luke? Ellie was just in the mall, surviving with the other kids, and then she's finally reunited with Jack after it all, but she still doesn't feel this way for him. I wonder if her feelings having died for Jack would have been taken differently.
Absolutely.
Rather than it seem,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, instead of it being like, oh, she replaced Jack with someone else, it'd just be like, no. I wonder if people would accept easier that her feelings for Jack simply died. She just doesn't feel that way for him anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely would have.
It's the combination.
It's because there's this third party. That's what is causing an issue in the fandom. If definitely was just her feelings and Jack's feelings just not matching up anymore because of the long distance they had apart, that would have been like easily accepted. But it's because Luke is in this.
You know what? Even with a third party, had it been Dell who had still been there, sure, I could have accepted that.
There's plenty of people who wouldn't have, though.
The fandom still would have been.
I think there's still people in the fandom because there's still people in the fandom who act as though Ellie played Dal and Jack against each other.
Yes,
which I never saw that. I never saw her playing them against each other. She always made it very clear to Dal, I'm sorry, Jack's my choice. We're friends. I like that we're friends, but that's all we are. She was sensitive to the fact that Dal cared about her, but she made it clear she never played games. But there's clearly people in the fandom who still saw it that way. So if it'd been Dal, they'd be like, I can't believe she hooked up with his best friend when he went away. Like, she'd still be the bad guy, And so, yeah, I guess that third party wouldn't work either way. Like, she'd have to be alone. And even then, I'm sure there'd be people who would still not like her because she didn't still love Jack. Like, how could you not love him after he loved you and he came back for you and you don't feel the same? But, yeah.
I mean, yeah, there'll always be people there who, because are Jack fans, but like, I think for me, it's the fact that she doesn't tell him this. This is what causes the real issue with Ellie. She doesn't tell him this, and obviously we know what it leads to later on. If she had just told him, just came clean with her feelings, that were clear, that would have been a lot more acceptable. But because she doesn't, that's my issue with her.
It's frustrating, but then I have to remember that she's 14 and she doesn't know how she feels herself. Like if Ellie was 100% positive, but she doesn't.
She really does at this point. I think she knows, and she's just covering because she doesn't want to do what she actually knows that has to be done. You know what I mean? She actually knows what she needs to do, but she doesn't want to accept it.
I don't think that's
She
true.
doesn't want to be the bad guy.
She seems like she believes what needs to be done is that she's supposed to make it work with Jack. She seems to believe that's what she's supposed to be doing, making it work with Jack. So I don't think it's fair to say that she knows she needs to tell Jack it's over because she wants Luke. Because Ellie's, to me, she seems to be making it clear that she believes that what she's supposed to do, the right thing to do, the thing a good person would do, is make it work with Jack. That's what's being encouraged. That's what people are telling her. That's even what Luke is
She
telling her.
knows what she needs to
No,
do.
I don't think that's the same. I do think there's a difference between knowing for a
I
fact what
agree
you
with
need
you,
to
Liz.
do.
No, I don't agree with that.
I do agree with Liz.
I'm with Lance.
Well, that's okay. It's fine. I'm just saying, like, I think it's, for example, adults who will stay in a marriage that they're unhappy in.
Yeah.
They'll believe I have to stay here because I have to stay for the kids, or because, whatever social pressures, even though in their heart, they don't really want it, but they think they have to. And it could take them years to finally accept, I don't want this. And you know what? I don't need it. What I need to do is end it. But for years, they'll stay unhappy in that relationship because they believe that's what they're supposed to do. I'm just making the argument that I think Ellie believes what she's supposed to do is make it work with Jack.
And nobody is kind of giving her an alternative either. Like you say, it does very much have that whiff of we're staying together for the children, but they don't actually have any children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they are
I
children
was going to say
themselves.
that there's nothing tying them together, and
No.
Luke
No,
is giving
there
her
isn't.
the other option. He is the other option. I mean, like,
But it's not like it's not an equal option. You know what I mean? He's a fugitive at this point. Like he's been tried in court. He's looked down on everybody. He doesn't know what kind of future he's going to have, what kind of life he can offer Ellie. And he's literally telling her, you need to go back to Jack because I can't offer you any,
Yeah, because he can't even leave that mall and
what
be
kind of
safe.
life? Yeah. Like what kind of life would you have? I can't give you a life, And so it's like, oh, okay.
I mean, that's kind of more enticing as well to a teenage girl.
I don't think that's fair because I certainly wouldn't have been enticed by that as a teenage girl.
I mean, just to some, okay, let me rephrase that. To some, this mature, mysterious man who's on the run from the city. It's kind of
the bad boy.
a certain, you know what I mean? A certain. I'm not saying Ellie loves that, but I mean that's a certain charm.
Been watching too much young adult fiction, Lance.
Yeah, but
no.
Yeah, if you say it like that, Lance, then Luke would be more like Alice's type because she likes her boys bad.
Yeah, but he's good at admin.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that's not Alice's type.
Yeah.
She likes bad boys that are illiterate.
Yeah, fair enough.
Oh, jeez.
I don't know. Maybe it's just in the writing, but I'm just not fully sold on her.
No, it's okay. I think these are really good different points of view, and I think we're arguing them well, and our audience won't feel like whatever they feel they're being dogpiled on for feeling it. You know what I mean? Like I think this works. We don't have to agree. I think we're even across the board. Yeah. Let's just say it's a crappy situation for these young people to be in. I think we can all agree with that. This sucks. This is really.
I'm gonna put something out here. I just have to. How is Ellie thinking she should stay with Jack because it's the right thing to do any different from Celine thinking she should stay with Ryan?
Oh, because Celine didn't want to stay with Ryan because she thought it was the right thing to do. Celine stayed with Ryan because she was afraid of being on her own. It wasn't, I mean, granted, I think there are some similarities. Celine was afraid of societal censure of what if I leave this guy who's wonderful and great. We do have a societal pressure not to end relationships unless there's what we think is a valid reason. Like they have to do something bad to us. It's not enough that we're just not happy in the relationship. It almost feels like that's not a good enough excuse to break up with a perfectly decent person. Our society tends to be like, well, what did they do? And you could be like, well, they didn't do anything. I'm just not happy. And they might look at you like you're crazy, So I do think there are some similarities, but I do think that in Celine's story, it's obvious that there are other reasons she's choosing to stay in a relationship she's not happy in. And it's not just because she thinks it's the right thing to do. Ellie isn't afraid of being alone. She's not afraid of not having someone to take care of her. She doesn't need a boy for that. She's always had her sister to do it. She's not seeking that in a relationship. So that isn't what she wants from either Jack or Luke. I was trying to think of a reason to justify Alice's nonchalance at her sister clearly needing guidance and being in such a bad way. I mean, this isn't some casual moment where Ellie's just like bounces in the room and just like, da-da-da-da-da. She is laying there despondent, curled up. Something is clearly wrong. When as Alice said, you should be happy. Jack's back. Aren't you happy he's back? You should be back to normal. And Ellie isn't. Why wouldn't that be a red flag to you? How can you be so caught up in your own gross whirlwind romance that's apparently happening to not notice? And I was trying to think, I was like, okay, what could I say to maybe defend Alice? Maybe, like, let's try, right? Let's think of an argument. And I thought, well, if it was only this scene where Alice is this dismissive of her little sister's feelings, you might be able to argue that Alice has never had anything just for herself before. So she did live through Ellie. Like her purpose was keeping Ellie safe and all that stuff. But unfortunately, like, I rip apart that argument the minute I go back into her past and the fact that she's been dismissive of Ellie through much of season 3. And then in season 2, even when she was head over heels for Lex, she was never dismissive of her sister then. So her behavior here just doesn't make sense. Maybe that does make some sort of a difference in her demeanor and the fact that this is mine. I have this. I have it on lock. I can take him or leave him. You know, like, it's in my hands. I don't have to chase him. So maybe.
Yeah, she's finally got some security. Even though, we don't want her to have the security with him. But
Nope.
that doesn't mean it's not there.
And it would have been nice to see her have that security, just like you say, not with him, somebody else.
It is a shame because she plays it so well, Alice being happy like this. Like, even though we're like, ew, this is the guy, his love makes you feel this way. She does so well at being like, wow, I have someone who adores me. Like, I'm beating him off with a stick. This feels so wonderful. I've never had this before. And that just makes it, again, what could have been done with this love story, even with its tragic ending, even with Ned being a questionable person, if a few more drafts had gone into it, this could have been incredibly compelling.
Yeah. And really sad. It would have really earned the grief that she has for him at the end.
Yeah.
Spoiler. Yeah.
Yeah, but I still don't think that the grief that she has at the end is just specifically only for Ned as a person.
Okay.
But we'll get to that when we get to that.
See, now I need to know, Sabine. You can't leave me hanging.
It's just it's also part of grief of, the relationships she lost. She was part of a couple and then suddenly she was alone again.
It's a grieving of her hopes and dreams.
Yeah.
Ned, all the hopes and dreams she'd had, she kept close to her chest. The future. Here was Ned telling her, we can have that future. We can build your farm back up. She had a partner in life who was like, baby, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to give you everything. That's also what she's grieving. Not just him, but like the future, the overpromising of a future. And she let herself believe she could have that. I can have that. And then it's taken from her.
Well, I feel bad now. I can't wait to cheer when that moment happens.
That's why I said this story has so much potential. It could have been such a great tragic love story where we'd actually feel bad for the both of them. You could feel bad for Ned, who is this messed up guy who doesn't do anything right, has this vindictive, cruel side of him, but he wants to be better because this woman influences him to be better. His folly as he tries to fast track that success to get there with her. And that's a tragedy. It could have been really great, but because of the way this is written, it's like you have to try and find the potential it could have had. You see, that's what I'm saying. You can see the potential in the pieces of this story, and it just makes it all the worse. You're like, this could have been awesome. Or at least it could
almost Shakespearean.
It could have been good. Let's just say it just could have been a good story. Like, you could still be like, I never shipped them, but wow, that story was good, or whatever. But they don't even give you that,
Shame, yeah.
Because the
Another
actors,
missed opportunity.
right? The actors are giving it their all with what they're given, and
we all feel depressed now, don't we?
now this is the episode for it.
Yeah. So we do see small snippets of Amber and Trudy held in captivity, and we see Amber trying to comfort a very distressed Trudy. What do you make of these little small moments that we get to see?
I feel so bad for Trudy.
You can feel the pain through the screen. You can feel it. Oh,
Here she is once again, and Amber's telling her, "Don't worry, they're coming for us."
Yeah,
And all I could think is, "Yeah, Amber, sure. With you there, they might. Trudy knows better.
yeah. I love how she breaks.
She knows nobody's coming."
I love how when Amber's trying to comfort her, she's like you say, Bray will come, and that just makes Trudy cry more because she, like, she's been here. She knows
Traumatizing.
how this goes.
oh,
Like, how traumatizing must that be for Trudy? Okay, like Amber has never been in a position where she couldn't trust that there was somebody who cared enough for her
Mm-hmm.
to come for her, to mourn her, to fall apart without her. She gets affirmation after affirmation of how necessary she is to the people around her. Okay. She went on a weekend trip with a boy in season 1 and the mall fell apart without her. Like, she is constantly being reminded how necessary she is. So it is easier to stay positive in this dreadful situation where you've just been kidnapped by someone in your own home and locked away and believe they won't quit looking for us. But Trudy has not had that experience. And I think how traumatizing it must be for her to once again be taken from her home,
From her child.
held against her will, and separated from her child yet again, and to have that full formed belief no one is going to come for me. I waited for rescue before. I've depended on other people to save me, and they never did. They let me down. They betrayed me. They screwed me over. And like the despair and trauma she must be reliving. And I'm just like, why do you keep doing this to her? Why couldn't you just leave her alone? I get it. Clearly Antonio was in school, so, but it bugged me so much to see Trudy being put through this again. Like there was no other storyline they could have given her. I just,
Couldn't we just take Amber and Celine, for crying out loud?
Oh, can you imagine
Oi.
that though? That would have been like, Amber does not deserve that.
I was gonna say, 'cause Amber doesn't
but
deserve
I
that.
mean, why couldn't they have just taken Amber? Why did they need to take? I mean, I know he didn't want to take Trudy. He had to take her because she came into the room. She was never the intended target. It was always Amber. But yeah, I mean, it would have made more sense. And we could have seen Trudy maybe marshalling the troops the way she did
Oh,
at the
yeah.
start of season 2, where she was kind of the one that kept them all together.
well, again, the reason that Trudy is also kidnapped is because Beth and Antonia were doing
Yeah.
schooling at the time. They both needed to leave. And that keeps happening all the way like through season 4, that the two of them are trying to go to school. And so that's why they conveniently tend to be away together so that they can do that.
Yeah.
And so that's why they kind of get lumped in with their storylines, where Trudy is sort of just a tag-along to Amber's storyline because they both have to be away. Yes, they could have easily just had Trudy go back to the Gaians for a little bit, but I think they thought this was more exciting and convenient a way to have both of them off screen. Just stick them together again,
Yeah. That makes sense when you've got to deal with something like that, when it's an outside factor as opposed to a story idea.
Yeah, so it's like
Yeah.
it keeps happening, especially with these two. It tends to happen around the same time. In season 3, it happens around the same time. Amber goes away because Beth had to go away. Trudy gets sent away because Antonia had to be sent away, had to go away. And so it just turns out they were off doing the same thing. Here, they get kidnapped together because both girls had to go away. Season 4, they go back to the Gaians after the techno invasion because both girls had to go away. They couldn't film, so why they just keep getting it just keeps happening coincidentally that, oh, look at that, we both have to go away, so they're like, well, we'll just throw your characters together someplace else.
And I mean, it is ultimately a shame they keep doing that because they should give Trudy her own story and
Yes.
agency, but no.
Yeah.
Just
She keeps being Amber's tag along because Amber's always still doing the most important thing, or for example, when they leave the city because of the technos, it's Amber's choice, not Trudy's. Trudy is just following Amber, taking care of Amber. It's Amber who says, I want to raise my child away from this. We're not going back. You know what I mean? Like it's always Amber really leading the helm, even though it's both girls who have to leave. Trudy's never, it's never really about Trudy or Trudy's choice. It's always, and they just continue this, Trudy just following whatever Amber's doing. And it just becomes a part of their dynamic of Trudy being Amber's cheerleader. So yeah, it's a detrimental to Trudy's character because
Yeah.
they weren't very careful with it, you know. I'll tell you what I don't like about the scene, because I don't think it's terrible. It's fine to check in on them. But I'm just looking at them. Now, when they're sitting there with their hands behind their back, I assumed, because my first thought was, have you guys tried to get up and open the door? I'm still trying to figure out how Ned got you both in here, how he was able to wrangle two young women and get you both in here. You know, I mean, Amber couldn't have stayed passed out that long forever. And even if she was passed out, was Trudy? Trudy seemed wide awake. Did he knock both of them out? How did he carry two unconscious? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how he got them here.
Wheelbarrow.
But now that
Whole city.
So, okay, fine. They're in this room. Have you tried getting out? Yes, your hands are tied behind your back, but you're not alone. You're like literally, there's two of you who could be working on whatever is restraining you behind your back, you know? And later, this is what gets me. I just assumed maybe they're just handcuffed. Okay, fine. You know what I mean? Not everyone would be willing to break their thumb to get out of handcuffs. So I will accept they're stuck. Maybe they're handcuffed to something. I'll accept that too, right? Even though this, what kind of room is this, right? Anyway, I accept that. Fine. They can't get up. Maybe they have tried the door. Maybe that's why they're sitting here in despair. But there is going to be a scene later that shows them removing their restraints. And I'm like, you mean you could have done that the whole time? What was stopping you from removing the restraints? They clearly weren't handcuffs. Clearly it was just rope. And we never see them working on this situation. They're just sitting there like waiting to be rescued. Like, you guys could have staged this so much better to show that they literally can't get out of their situation, even if they're trying. Like,
Yeah, but they've spent time amongst the captured mole rats recently, you know? It's apparently stupidity rubs off.
yeah, it's catching.
There's something in the water at the mole that just makes you lose all sense of escape.
Well, I think we sort of ascertained that it was the asbestos.
Mm-hmm.
That was only in the basement.
Really? Really?
Okay, I'll say one other positive thing about this, even though I don't think it's staged well. In this scene, it's Amber who's confident they'll come for us, and she's calming Trudy. And Trudy, who is reliving all of her trauma, is having a breakdown. Okay, rightly so. Okay. But the next time they show them in the same situation, this time it's Amber who's breaking down because the reality of how many days it's been, and I think at that point Ned had not been there for a little while, Amber was actually starting to panic. And it's Trudy who has to rally. Because Trudy, yeah, she went through it. She broke down, reliving all the crap she'd gone through, living with the possibility once again, I don't know when I'm going to see my child again. I don't know when I'm going to get out of this. But now, after she's gotten that out of her system and Amber's starting to hit with what, oh my gosh, nobody's coming. I thought I was important. Like, what the frick, right? And it's Trudy who's like, cut it out, Amber. You have to be strong. You have to be strong for your baby. Keep it together. Because I just like that, showing the shift that has to happen as they both go through the emotions of dealing with the situation. You know, Trudy broke down first. And Amber was confident it's going to be okay. And then Trudy, who has to rally because she's done this before, and it's Amber who's breaking down. You know, I thought that was actually quite nice.
Yeah. It makes narrative sense for their characters, which is a sentence I didn't think I'd say this season.
I mean, the friendship that they kind of slowly build up between the two is one of the best things that they do, and then they obviously spoil it.
Yeah, they throw it in the trash, you know, but...
we don't need this anymore.
Yeah, it was totally good while it lasted.
These girls need to become good friends so we can torment Trudy more.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Why can't they just leave Trudy alone?
They decided she doesn't deserve that.
I think they ran out of ideas what to do with her. And besides, season 4 and 5 are full of weird misogyny and how the female characters are treated. It's bizarre, you know. I think season 4 and 5 can be chalked up as women be crazy.
But whatever you do, you cannot make people love you, no matter what. And Ellie doesn't love me. Well, I just wanted to put the record straight. The rest is up to you.
So yeah, was Luke right to approach Jack like this?
Know if he was right to do this. I'm not saying he's right or wrong. I don't think it was necessary. Like if he has made up his mind that Ellie, you need to go be with Jack. I can't give you a life, and I want you to be happy. And I've already had a moment with Jack to explain the situation and clear your name. That was the whole point of the first time he talked to Jack, was to clear Ellie's name. Why? Because he wants Ellie to have a future. He doesn't believe he can give her the future. He believes her future could be good with Jack, and he wants to make sure that Jack doesn't blame Ellie for anything he might have heard about she and Luke. That's why he tells him clearly, this may have happened between us, but she never cared about me that way. I want that clear. None of this was her fault. So you've already done that. There isn't really a need to do it again. You know, it's not like you saw Ellie and Jack fighting and you feel like, oh, maybe Jack needs more convincing, you know, or something. I kind of wonder if it has a lot to do with Luke's desperate need for validation from other people.
Yeah.
Why else would you bring up to Jack, hey, I'm not such a bad guy. I saved your life. That screams of, I want your approval. I want you to like me. The fact that you don't like me really bothers me. Why should you care if Jack likes you? Why should it bother you that Jack sees you as an interloper in his relationship when that's literally what you are? So why does it bother you so much? It sounds to me like you can't stand somebody not liking you. You are desperate for people to see that you're decent. You want Jack to see that. And then you're continuing to clear Ellie's name. You know, like, I want to make it clear, I'm not a bad guy. Yeah, I love your girlfriend, but she doesn't love me, you know? So go friggin' be with her. I would be with her, but she wants you. It seems a little desperate and a lot to do with Luke. If Luke can't have Ellie, if he can't be happy with her, he desperately needs to see her happy with somebody else.
Yep.
I'm not saying it's right, though. You know what I mean? Like, I really don't think you needed to do this. Like, remove yourself from this situation. Stop trying to control it. You know, if you love Ellie, whatever she does, just let her be. Just let her be. Stop trying to control what her future is going to be based on what you think it ought to be. Just let her go. Stop getting involved.
Yeah.
I agree. I would also say, as somebody who suffers from people pleasing tendencies, I completely agree with what you said, Liz. I can see that in Luke's motivations. And actually, I can see that going all the way back to his trial. The motivation to be released from the fact that everybody hates him. I can see that really clearly. I would also say, I wanted to add something, which is, he's not really listening there's no space in this conversation for Ellie. He's just saying, you know, you need to be with Jack, and Jack, you need to be with Ellie. And it just seems like she's been cut out of this equation in Luke's head.
It's like he needs Jack and Ellie to get back together to relieve some of his own guilt over the whole Ellie situation.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it feels like to me. That he realizes what happened with Ellie just really wasn't right. And this is his chance to make up for that by pushing the two of them together. But at the same time, he doesn't want people to hate him. So he feels the need to tell Jack that, look, you saved me, or I saved you, you know, so I'm not a bad person. And maybe he also tells Jack that to shed that little bit of light on the situation, that Ellie might have just been grateful to Luke for saving Jack. You know, just to explain why Ellie doesn't hate Luke.
Yeah, it just speaks a lot to Luke's desperation to be understood and seen the way he wants to be seen. You know, because again, I'm like, you guys already had this discussion. You already cleared Ellie's name. It doesn't matter if Jack doesn't like you, Luke. But I also do like it because it does set things up for the kind of person Luke is going to continue being and why he's going to end up in the same mess he always does. Desperate for approval from somebody, especially somebody in authority, and finds himself doing bad crap again and being like, oh my gosh, how'd I get here?
But he's always going to do this over and over again because he learns nothing from his previous actions. You know, it's just he does the same things again and again. So maybe Luke, you know what they say about mad people? You can tell, you know, they're doing the same thing, expecting the outcome to be different. Maybe Luke should be with the, you know.
If by those standards, everybody's pretty crazy. All these kids are pretty crazy. But yeah, it's interesting scene. I like the acting. I really like the play of the way these two are playing off of each other really well. I like sassy Jack, but I also like that he is listening. You know, like even he needed that again reassurance. Like, here's this guy telling me, I love your woman. You know, you told me to back off, but I love her, but she doesn't love me. Don't you get it? You know. But yeah, it wasn't necessary. Luke didn't need to do this. It just says a lot about Luke as a person that he felt the need to do it.
Yeah, I mean, Luke is one of the most complicated and interesting characters in the show, and it's just a shame that his main thing is getting stuck in this love triangle.
It's an interesting one. Like, there's interesting dynamics in this triangle compared to a lot of them that we get. You know, this was complicated. This was not some simple, gee, I can't choose between two people. You know what I mean? The way all of them were thrown together, the way people were separated, you know, it's an interesting love triangle. I guess that's why I never even think about it as a love triangle, because I tend to think of those in derogatory terms. They're not my favorite romantic trope, but I never think of this one as a love triangle, probably because it's so well thought out. It's interesting. You know, there's a lot of layers to it. And so it feels like calling it a love triangle is too simplified and reductive compared to actually what it is. You know, I should broaden my view of love triangle. Those are my prejudices speaking.
Yeah, there can be more to them than just, oh, I like this boy, but that one's the captain of the basketball team.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
She ain't no Celine.
But I also like that this fuels what Jack does next. Having what you think is your competition, having the person you think is moving in on your woman and has blatantly admitted to your face, oh yeah, I tried. I told her that I love her. And she doesn't love me, is what sort of fuels Jack to make such a grand gesture and try to move try to stake his claim on he and Ellie's relationship, because he's this reminder there's somebody else who loves her, somebody else who wants her and would be willing to woo her if she shows an ounce of interest towards them, you know? So I like that. There is like a cause and effect, even though I don't think it's necessary for Luke to have done this.
Yeah, it just feels like he did it more for himself than for Jack.
Yeah, I don't think he did it for Jack, you know?
No.
I'm not even sure. I'm not even 100% sure he's doing it for Ellie. I agree with you, Sabine. I think he may be doing this more for himself, you know, than her. Because
it's his conscience.
As Thompson said, it's almost like Ellie doesn't have her opinion in this equation, doesn't count. He's telling Jack Ellie's feelings, and they're not entirely accurate. He knows Ellie does care for him, you know, and so it's like she's a non-entity. She's a parcel to be passed between them, you know, and...
Oh, I cannot stand the way they say your woman. That hits my rage button every time, because you're right, it's like, oh, well, she's your parcel, she's your woman, you own her, you know, I would never muscle in on your woman. But we hardly ever, apart from Ebony, who says your man a couple of times, we never get it the other way round. I wouldn't mind it if there was your man's, you know.
You're my woman, Trudes. That's what Zoot said.
Yeah, but the girls have their own version of it. They may not say he's my man, but they'll say things like, you tried to steal him from me. You tried to take him from me. So, I mean, both groups are guilty of treating their love interests as possessions that can be bought and sold, traded, surrendered, given. You know what I mean? I think Pride was one of the few people who just straight up went to Amber and said, here is your ring back. You choose who you want to give it to. It's up to you. he doesn't go to Bray and say, "She's yours."
And look what happened to Pride.
Aw.
I was going to say.
But I'm just saying, like, he had enough respect for Amber as a person that it's up
Yeah.
to her who she wants to be with, and he's letting her know, you choose. I'm not going to force any choice on you. I'm not going to guilt trip you. I'm giving you your stuff back. I'm giving you back any obligation you made to me so that you can step back and make the choice you want to freely. And that's that. You know what I mean? And that's one of the few times you really see that. You know, he doesn't confront Bray about it, you know, or anything like that, you know?
And that's why Pride is the better guy.
Was, and then they ruined it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
they
Yes.
ruined him.
He was.
Was.
that's no
They
Pride.
Aliced him. They Aliced him.
The
Let's be honest.
difference is we hadn't known him for very long.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's true.
His descent came quite quickly.
Very quick. Super quick.
Is it? Do you think he was in the like hanging out with the mole rats too much, and it just like you say, it rubbed off on him?
He got
Mhm.
2 weeks of being a superior character, and then they were like, "We're gonna have you get kidnapped by Ned," and it was all downhill from there.
Yeah.
Just piece by piece, all that cool stuff we gave you, you're taking it away.
Is it right to sacrifice 2 bright young women for him? 2 people who can do so much good. And then there's Brady. She needs her mother. And what about you, Bray? And your family?
We're not going to rehash the discussion between Pride and Bray since they did that last episode, but what is worthy of note is the final shot that we see of the Guardian suddenly dropping the whole fake insanity act and smiling as he watches the 2 of them leave. Yeah, panel, what did you make of that?
Now it just
He's
makes
just
all of
evil.
these people, if there had ever been a valid point that the writers were trying to make about not charging this guy, not trying him, if there was ever a point they were trying to make about that, about, you know, the virtuous characters being in the right, that this is how you should handle your prisoners,
Yeah.
regardless of what they've done, blah, 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 even though they did a terrible job. But if that was what they were trying to do, they just underwrote it immediately with this scene alone.
Yeah.
That
Thank
one
you,
shot,
yes.
everything they tried to do was just thrown in the garbage.
Pointless.
When I've been on here previously, we have talked about that, and you are completely right. It is all of these arguments that they have set up. They must have known that this was going to be the outcome. So you are completely right.
Mhm.
All of those, and they've made the characters that you are supposed to have trust in, like Bray and Amber. You are supposed to think that they know what they're doing, and they just look like idiots. They look like morons. And
Well, they all do, yeah. They all
I would
look...
also say it says something quite bad about mental health as well. You know, that it's like it's one of those things that you can fake a mental illness to get what you want, just pretend, or it opens up another can of worms, because we've just put to bed the capital punishment thing, but then it turns out that he wasn't insane anyway. They've all been taken as mugs. And then we open up another can of worms, which is sometimes mad people aren't mad. Which, what are they thinking? Like, the ramifications of this are ridiculous.
I can't believe they did this. I don't understand what the point was of, as you just said, basically saying this murderer just got away with murder. He was able to fool everybody into thinking, oh, he couldn't help it. He didn't know any better. We literally have a conversation with Tyson saying he doesn't know any better, and we don't know how long he's been that way. Okay, so you just were fooled by a murderer who is not being brought to justice for his murders. Okay, and yeah, mental illness can be turned on and off with a switch whenever, you know, because you cannot convince me that he wasn't crazy earlier. Damon acted that way too well. They put too much work into that. Now, granted, when he's dribbling in the cage, I don't really buy that. But like when he's losing it, when the Chosen are still in charge, that descent, they put way too much thought into it, and it's so well acted. You can't tell me he wasn't losing his mind. And now you've just undermined all that and gave so many messed up messages and stigmatized mental health as well. Like, why? What was the purpose of this?
Yeah, it just feels like the only thing they thought about in that was just, you know, to show us that, yes, sometimes creepy guys can play you. Don't trust anyone.
And you'd think if that's what they were trying to prove, they would have had a much more thoughtful conversation around the whole situation. But they reducted it down to, you don't do this to people who are mentally ill, and how justice should be served to our criminals. That's what they made the argument about. And then they undermined everything they just put us through.
And I think it shifts the focus. Like, who is now the main character of this? Because it shifts it from being the Mallrats to kind of being the Guardian, because it's his perspective that we're now seeing out of. Because we are now seeing him play the Mallrats like a fiddle. And I think that's quite interesting. Another thing I think what is behind this is that maybe in the writing, they realised quite early on, or they realised quite late, that they backed themselves into a corner with the Guardian in terms of having him in that cage. The sort of stories that were going on, the questions that were being asked, the fact that they wanted the answer to be no, and the storyline was not really going anywhere, and the central kind of storyline around it was the mob, which has kind of gone away, and then it was just Lex and Tai-San arguing over and over again about the same sort of things. So I wonder if they were like, do you know what, to move this on, let's just make him not be mad now.
Yeah, it could be.
Essentially, they wasted our time. That's what the storyline did. It was not very thought-provoking in the first place, and then in the end, none of their arguments even mattered. Not a single one of them.
I'd also say that if you have not been following, if you didn't watch season 1 or 2 and you came in as a new fan in season 3 and you were introduced to Amber the way she's been introduced, or maybe you were a fan in season 2 and then you continued in season 3, what would you actually think of this? Because what are they telling you to think about Bray, Amber and Tai-San in this moment when they do this? They are telling you, as I said before, that they are absolute morons, that none of them can judge a character, and they're all just idiots. And they talk they talk about the world being a better place, but in reality, they just, it's the Ebony and the Lexes that are actually talking sense, and they're the ones that are going to get things done. And you should never go into anything thinking that, you can make a difference, because you can't, because intrinsically, what is this messaging?
Yeah, agreed. It makes the three of them look like self-righteous idiots. And every point they made is now moot.
And they are.
And it's just like, I don't know why you thought the rug pull was more important than the message you were trying to convey. Regardless of how badly you were conveying it, you at least had a message. You at least had a point, it seemed, to what you were trying to teach your audience, what you were trying to make them think about. Again, you did a bad job, but you were at least attempting to give kids an argument of how some things like this should be handled. And then you just kick them in the teeth and said, doesn't matter. Bad people are bad. And they'll fool you. And that's it.
Seriously, is that the message?
Right. Like, there's no discussion to be had. They're just terrible people.
They're just terrible people. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I would also say, though, that I think it's less detrimental to Bray and Amber, but it is incredibly detrimental to Tai-San.
Oh, yeah. It flushes her right down the toilet.
Yeah. Because from this moment on, she's just an idiot. And what she does later on with Lex makes him look like an idiot as well, when he's actually been right the entire time. Lex and Ebony have been correct. You said an interesting thing on a previous podcast, Liz. I mean, one of many things that you, Liz, Sabine, Maggie, everyone has said. But you said an interesting thing about when the show wants to get away with saying this plan is really, really dumb and it shouldn't go ahead. They put it in the mouths of someone like Lex or someone like Ebony. But this has kind of reversed that, and they've put the actual truth in the mouths of Lex and Ebony. The whole time they have been saying, this is absolute, Ned is correct. They're all correct. And they are the morally greyest people that you could say, introduce to a child and say, yes, no, this is the right thing. What this guy here is saying, eating rubbish, he's correct. And it's just
and that's the most
sake.
disturbing part.
Yeah. It is disturbing. This whole thing is disturbing.
I just don't get the point. I still don't even get the point of doing this, ruining so many characters, so many arcs. I just pointless.
Well, because they didn't know what else to do. They didn't know how to get the Guardian out of the cage. They didn't know how to go from A to B. They just didn't know how to do any of that.
I mean, I can't even give them that. Like, this is the worst thing to do. Like, if you want to write the Guardian, if you wanted to write a Guardian escaping, I mean, you could write that so many different ways. Yeah, this is not like, you know what I mean. This is not a reaction to him getting him to lead up to him leaving. This is just, it's just bad. I don't know.
I was just thinking, now, this whole point, the point of this is so that we can get to the tail end of what happens with Ned. Okay? Ned thinking that, Ebony finding out the Guardian isn't out of his mind, and then tricking Ned into a situation where Ned is endangered because he thinks he's dealing with someone who's out of his mind and harmless, and then leading to his untimely end. And it's like, I still feel like you could have gotten there without walking back the Guardian's sanity.
Yeah.
I think you could have even made a point about people who suffer from mental health issues are far more likely to have violence put upon them.
I was just gonna say, thank you. Yeah, like there's no point. There's no need to walk that back. He could have still been violent towards Ned and being mentally unstable.
Right,
like have to walk that back.
Just defending himself. Just recognizing I'm in danger, wanting to get away. And of course Ned would try to stop him, and Ned gets, taken out in the scuffle because he is dealing with someone who at this point is reacting like a wild animal just trying to survive. The lesson could have been Ned did this to himself, trying to inflict danger on somebody, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's still so much you could have done to get us where we get without this rug pull that serves no real purpose except to spit in the face of the audience and call us idiots for ever engaging with the discussion in the first place.
I would also say that it's emblematic of how this show actually treats mental illness. Going back to season 1 with Trudy and the overdose. And Celine and her various mental health issues. And now we've got the Guardian. And it's almost as if the idea is that, and especially I would say with Trudy, is that was an incredibly selfish act for her to do. But in reality, there are multiple reasons why someone would do that. And yes, from the outside, it may appear to be selfish, but in reality, sometimes it can be a cry for help, but sometimes it can just be wanting someone wanting to end it. And then you think about Celine and how the writers treat Celine. The whole time, it's that these characters, especially Trudy and Celine, but I'm going to lump the Guardian in, are lacking some sort of moral fibre that everybody else can cope with all of the stuff that's been thrown at them. But for some reason, these two girls can't do it. It's all too much. You see Amber, she copes with being a mother really well. And that was the stage cough, by the way.
I was going to say.
I mean, it's really easy when you have other people raising the kid.
I was going to say, when you're passing it around quite often, it's pretty easy.
Yeah, when you've got a tribe to raise your child, it's really easy.
When Trudy did that with Brady, it was an issue, but when Amber does it, it's so fine.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, like intrinsically, we are told from the outset when we meet Trudy that she's selfish, that she puts herself first, that she lives in this sort of fantasy where she's in a relationship with Bray, even though they're not. And it's like they treat the characters that they decide are going to have mental health issues. It's like it's always the ones that we are told, but there's, Celine dicks Ryan about, and Trudy is inherently selfish. And it's like, this is it's so unhealthy. You just would not have it now, I don't think. And it's so of the period in which it was done, where they're starting to try and talk about these issues, but they do not have the framework, and they've set themselves up for failure because of the characters they've chosen to discuss it with.
It doesn't help that there tends to be a repeat that brings whether or not the characters had mental health issues to begin with. Me and Sabine had some good discussions about it in season 1. Was Trudy actually dealing with mental health issues, or was she just like hormonal and going through a bad time and she had to grow up?
Yeah.
Because of how easily she's able to shut it off. Just one day, Trudy, like once she finally got a nap and got like 24 hours away from the kid, you know, she was able to like think straight and be like, oh, you know, calm herself down. And boom, she comes back home and becomes an instantly really nice person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And despite how she'd been set up as being horrible to everybody while she was going through this really rough time. And we were discussing, like, was it mental health, or was she just a child who needed to grow up and face facts that you can't treat people that way? So when they deal with mental health, they also tend to do that, which muddies the waters by having the characters go through a rough time, and they want to lean on, well, they're going through mental health issues. That's why they're such a mess. That's why they're treating people the way they are, blah, blah, blah. But then when they need the character to shut it off, boom, they shut it off. It's done. The character is just like, and it's always something along the lines of, well, I grew up, I faced facts. You know what I mean? I had to deal with reality. And it's like, well, then it really wasn't just mental health issues. Clearly, that's what you're saying. Or you're making the comment that that's how you deal with your mental health issues. Like, it's so confusing what the heck they were going for. Like, are you just saying that this is a child growing up and going through the same phases we all do? Or are you making excuses? Because the narrative doesn't always know how it wants to treat them. Sometimes the narrative is like, oh no, they can't help the way they are, until we decide they can help the way they are. And then sometimes the narrative is like, oh no, they're being a kid, and kids do things like this. And like, yeah, they're trying to talk about subjects. I mean, again, I do think they did better in season 1, but when you take the show as a whole, it is pattern, you know?
Yeah.
That keeps coming up and getting worse every time they touch on it. Every time they touch on
That's
that,
the bad part about
it
it.
gets worse.
It's getting worse.
Right. Their ability to talk about it or discuss it gets worse and less cohesive and coherent of what they're even trying to say about the subject. And it gets to the point where you don't even want them to touch on anything serious anymore. Because like in an earlier season, you were like, well, they're actually trying. You know, I can see where they're going, especially with the knowledge that we had at the time and what our social beliefs were about this subject. But then as the seasons go on, you're like, I'd really rather you never touch these subjects because you aren't willing to put the work into discussing these subjects anymore. So just stop. Just stop. You know what I mean? Because it's getting worse every time you bring them up.
We all did crazy things. It was a crazy time. I'm embarrassed just to think about it. I mean, some of the stuff I did.
Celine, if I had to say sorry to everybody I'd hurt, I don't know. I've never been able to get close enough to people not to hurt them. In case they hurt me, I guess. I guess I'm always going to be on the outside looking in.
See, panel, an interesting confession here from May. Like, how do you feel her saying that in reality she's not that much different than Ebony?
I love when May gets self-reflective. I do. Like when she becomes self-aware, I love those moments with May. I really do. When she recognizes her own problems.
She is absolutely nothing like Ebony because of her self-reflection. Ebony would never, ever look at herself in the mirror and say, I am these things. Because she's always trying to say, oh no, I'm not these things. I've been hard done by. This is happening to me. This is the reason why I've done that. And yeah, she would never have this sort of self-reflection that May's got.
No, Ebony would
Because
blame
there's
it
always
on
an
other people.
excuse with Ebony. Yeah, and there's always an excuse with Ebony. Like you say, it's always somebody else's fault. Somebody else made her do it. And, you know, in reality, if everybody just backed off and left her alone with Bray, everything would be fine. But they won't stop interfering. And it's like, he doesn't want to be with me, you know, but it's always somebody else's fault. Yeah. So, yeah, that's just, I mean, it sounds like I don't like Ebony. I do like her. I think she's amazing. I think she's one of the best characters in the show, but she is so deluded. The level of self-delusion that she actually does is incredible. The gymnastics she goes to never be wrong in her own head. May could never be like that.
Yeah, May knows she's self-destructive. And while most of the time she's able to just skate by, not thinking about it, she'll have these moments when it just hits her in the face. And I like how this moment happens, she sees Casey helping Jack. She sees the effort Jack is putting towards the girl he's into, cares about her. So he went through all of this trouble to give her something special. And she looks at that and she thinks, wow, no one's ever done that for me. And then it sends her into that spiral of why. And I guarantee she's thinking, why doesn't Pride like me? Because, that's been on her mind, that Pride isn't into her. Why isn't he into me? And it all comes you come full circle. You're looking in the mirror and you're like, why would he like me? Look at the kind of person I am and the things I do. And I'll never get past the things I do to people. And granted, you could say it's a little bit of a pity party, but it's a very realistic one that she's having with Celine, and just realizing, like, I do these things. I make myself look like a very ugly person because I do these things. No wonder someone like Pride doesn't like me. No wonder I've never had someone go out of their way to do something special to me. It's very easy for people to do bad things to me because I've already done them first. And why would anyone want to let down their guard and do something really nice for me? And examining as to why she tends to do this to people, the fear of getting hurt, so she protects herself. And so I just like that little moment of her recognizing that about herself. It's like, yeah, now what? Now I know this is what's wrong with me, but now I don't know where to go with that. I know this now. It's great, but knowledge isn't always power.
No, it's a nice character beat as well, because it tells us about the inner workings of her mind. Because, like you say, May is one of those characters that's quite spiteful. She's quite spiky. She hits back before she's hit. She's a self-saboteur. And now we've got the reasons why we've got the inner workings now, and how she actually feels about her own behavior.
Too close, Celine. I'll just screw you over. And it's sad because we know she was tempted to do it once. Like, that's the thing. She knows that about herself. There was a moment when she was tempted to throw Celine under the bus to ingratiate herself with the Guardian. She considered it. She took a different route and decided not to throw Celine under the bus, or even, Alice and Ellie. But the thing is, she considered it. It would have been easy to do. She knows she's capable of thinking that way. To Celine, who hadn't done anything wrong to her, Celine may have done many wrong things, but she hadn't done anything wrong to May at that time. And yet May was aware, May was aware that even under those circumstances of someone who'd never harmed me, I was considering throwing her under the bus for my own benefit.
Yeah, and you could also argue that Celine was one of the only people who treated May with any sort of kindness in the mole, or even really wanted her to be there.
And so I just think it's a nice moment for her. And in a way, I do feel bad for her in the sense that it does suck when you have to look in the mirror and you do not like who's looking back at you. And you realize there's no one to blame but yourself, that's your reflection. Like, yeah, you can say, well, my childhood was hard or blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, you're staring and I did this. The ugliness I'm looking at is from my actions. I'm the one who does this. I do this to myself every time. And that's why I'm lonely. That's why I don't have anybody, and I don't know how to let my guard down. And I strike out before I can be struck. And here I am in love with a man who can't love me. And no wonder he can't love me, because look what I am.
It's that realization that even if he could, he wouldn't view her as a serious romantic prospect because of how she is.
And I thought that was just really good writing. Great character beat. And of course, here's Celine being her cheerleader again, which Celine is always really willing to do, no matter what May does, which I think is interesting about their relationship,
Well, is there some latent reason as to why that's the case?
I don't know. I don't know. I often wonder that about Celine, that she's always willing to have May's back, even though May hasn't always had hers, and it's just interesting. It's just a pattern, and they don't really ever explore why Celine does this with May when she's not that.
Spoiler.
It's because she loves. Like Celine's not that consistent with anybody else, Like she, like there was the Bray situation, but we at least understood where that came from. She idolized him. She fawned over him. So he could do no wrong, blah, blah, blah. But with May, it's a little like, why? This is interesting that no matter what, from the minute you met May, you've had her back. You would defend her to everybody, no matter what she might have done, no matter how shady she might come across. She always had her back. And she continues all the way into season 5 when May gets to the point where she is once again doing unforgivable things. And it's Celine who's just like, will beat up anybody who has the nerve to come at May over it, and you're like, why? So May would not do these things for you. So like, even when May has done her dirty and been cruel to her, out of jealousy and pettiness, Celine came back and had May's, it's just interesting. Very interesting dynamic there. When we have not seen May do the same for Celine. Like she's done, don't get me wrong, she has her own version of being devoted to Celine, but it's just fascinating that I've never seen Celine be that consistently have someone's back as she has for May.
When you put it like that, I think it's a really then interesting piece of writing, what happens down the line, and it makes much more sense when you put it like that than when you actually just watch season 5 in isolation. That's my headcanon now.
I mean, Celine felt something for May, some kind of kinship, because I've never seen her be that forgiving of a character who messes up or downright goes out of their way to screw people over. As May and Celine is always like, you're not bad. You're not a bad person. Or she makes excuses for May. Even when May is like, I'm terrible. Okay, let's just face facts. I did something wrong. And Celine be like, no, but you didn't. You know what I mean? And it's like, I'd be different if they had like random assortment of characters who did that. Then you could just say it's the narrative trying to make you feel a certain way about May. But it's usually always Celine who will be the one to tell you May's not a bad person. And I just wonder why.
So are we kind of saying that maybe May is the love of Celine's life?
I mean,
because when you put it like that, that's what this is giving. Because when you think about Bray, when you think about Ryan, but when you think about it in terms of May, I mean, the things that Celine even puts up with, like you say, from May, that she wouldn't have put up with from, like, forget it, Ryan. You could be just everything and she still doesn't want you. But with May, she could just give her a look and that's it.
Maybe.
I won't lie, it is a change of pace. It is nice to see that kind of sororal relationship where regardless, even when it's at the point where these two are clearly in love with the same person and May is being incredibly spiteful over it, even though Celine didn't do anything wrong, like she didn't take your man, right? He was never yours and he fell in love with someone else, but whatever. She was very spiteful even after his death, to the point where she tried to have Celine killed, and even with all of that, like Celine is still just like, when other people are rightfully pointing out how evil May is, how wrong she is, Celine's like, I will throw hands with you over this, and you're like, okay, that's just interesting to see that, because even they don't even do that with Trudy and Amber,
No.
Like, maybe this is true love. I don't know. It's just an interesting pattern to see over the course of 4 seasons of them together.
My bisexual heart just loves this. That this is the one bit of consistent writing that we've had.
And I mean, granted, like I said, May has her own way of showing devotion. It's odd. She could have thrown Celine under the bus easily. From the moment she met Celine, her sense of wanting to help this girl really came out of nowhere. There was no reason for her to give Celine shelter when she was being chased. There was no reason for her to climb out of that dumpster and threaten to fight a group of people who wanted her. She didn't know who Celine was. She didn't know she was a mall rat. There was nothing for her to gain. She just saw her in trouble. Then she gives her what little food she has. She gives her the best advice she has. She even offers, I'll go with you so you don't have to be alone. She's by Celine's side, trying to help her work through a conundrum that to May seems it's really easy, but Celine's making it difficult, and still has her back. Even when she's watching Celine bungle this in the worst way, she still has her back the whole time. Even when she starts to feel negatively about Celine's actions and will criticize Celine, she still kind of has Celine's back. She doesn't throw her under the bus with the Chosen, no matter how easily that could have been. Even when she feels like she doesn't seem to like Celine that much, and even says some throws some petty jabs at her. She doesn't do anything bad to Celine when the opportunity arises, and it just continues. Like when Celine is injured in season 5 and like has an infection, it's implied that May slept with some guy just to get antibiotics for her.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. This is someone you hated and tried to have killed, but the minute she needed you, you were there. Like, it's just an interesting relationship. They should have let them get together, honestly, but it's just like, wow, that's wild. For 4 seasons, that's the truest you've ever really seen 2 people be. Regardless of how terrible they are as people, they have been true blue to each other in an odd way.
Yeah.
Tyson.
You know it's wrong. He's ill. He doesn't even know what's happening.
Don't you think I've been over that? Over and over?
Then you know that you can't do it.
Amber and Trudy are more important.
And we'll get them back.
How?
We'll find a way, but not this way. Amber started our new world by protecting the Guardian from the mob, by setting Luke free to live with his conscience, by creating a new kind of justice.
Yeah, I know all that.
But then you know that if you do this, you'll be throwing everything she's done back in her face.
We can't let you do that, buddy.
So, panel, we have touched on most of this before, so just in general, what did you make of the different discussions going on here?
Tyson and Lex trying to convince Bray. I really feel...
Yeah.
I again, this is, to me, just a united front. This is just a couple who have each other's back. This is important to Tyson, and Lex has got her back on that. And for him, that's the fight. You know what I mean? He could keep, if he really wants his revenge, he really wants to see the Guardian go down, he could keep fighting with Tyson about it. But again, they both chose, we're choosing each other. And that's what Lex is choosing. He is putting his words into action. I choose you. If this is that important to you, I have your back. Also, it's not as though Lex is that invested in getting Amber and Trudy back. Granted, he had nothing to do with them going, but I don't think he would sob any tears if we never got them back. I'm just saying, like, let's be straight. It's not like some other character who it's really important to them that they get those girls back. This isn't like Bray or Pride or even poor Brady. You know what I mean? Like, it's Lex. He could take them or leave them. It'd be a tragedy, but it wouldn't ruin his life if they don't get the girls back. So there's that. And I feel bad for Bray being ambushed by them, but he's being ambushed by everybody, to be honest. It's not just them.
But then that's leadership, isn't it? I mean, that is the cross that you bear when you're a leader.
I feel for him.
They want Bray to finally make a decision on something. He's being forced to make a decision. Something Bray's normally not good at.
Everyone's telling him what decision he should make.
This show don't tell, because, like, they're always telling us what a great leader Bray is, but they have never shown us that, ever, once. I think, like, a handful of times, 2 or 3 occasions. And this is just another... I mean, it would have been interesting if he'd been a more capable leader, and then you see him in this position where he is completely lost. He doesn't know what to do, because for the first time, he's not making a decision that will affect the whole tribe. He's actually making a decision that will affect him, his partner, and their child. And it's different. It's closer to home. It is his home.
And he actually has to make a decision this time. He can't rely on others to make it for him.
Yeah. No one's going to do the hard work for him.
I like the way it's filmed. I like these scenes showing Bray thinking about this. Even when there's no voiceover, even when there's nobody talking, even when they're not doing the whole, like, what he's clearly thinking about, why you hear Amber's voice or something like that. Like, even when it's just dead silent and he's just staring at the Guardian, he's just staring off the roof and there's nothing there. They're doing a really good job of showing how much thought Bray has put into this. I think they're actually doing a really good job of showing the ambush of opinions of other people telling him what they think he should do and why. And I will say, for the first time, they are making great arguments for what decision Bray should make. Even Tyson and Lex, even though I don't agree that the Guardian is someone who seriously needs to be protected and that he is worth more than these two young women, I still think that the arguments Bray is being presented with are well done and the kind of things that would overwhelm even the most sensible person trying to figure out what the right thing is to do. I do think there's something to be said as to why Lex and Tyson's argument gets to him more, because I think he is looking for some encouragement to do what Amber would have wanted, because he is struggling so hard with this. He is the only voice saying, I should do what's right because that's what Amber would want, even though I don't want that. I don't want it. I don't want it at all. I want her back. Screw this guy. But he's struggling so hard with that. And here come two people to tell him, you're right. You shouldn't give him up, and even though I feel like Tyson, it's super easy to tell him you'll just find another way to get them back, but offer no suggestion as to what that is. That does bug me a little bit. When he's literally telling you, and how do we get them back? If I don't do this, how do we get them back? And she's like, we'll figure out another way, but not this way. Like, okay, please tell me the other way we're supposed to get them back. I love it. I love a suggestion, but what does it matter to you if I have to wait months or years to get them back? As long as we're doing what you think is right. You know what I mean? Like,
I love all these ideas, but I just want to throw a spanner into the works, which is he's faking it.
I know.
Which throws everything into the change.
That's the shame of it. That's the shame of the whole thing, is that every discussion we're having about this is moot because he's not really crazy. And all these decisions are being made. The whole plot is going the way it is because it's believed he's out of his mind. And so it's just a deadly drip of poison on everything, and
Jaffa is just that good.
I ain't gonna lie. I mean, if I ignore the fact that they bungled this so badly, I wasn't happy to see a little glint of the old Jaffa. Because Jaffa being crazy was kind of boring. I'm sorry. Like,
but Jaffa playing crazy.
The two
get away with murder.
There's two different kinds of crazies, and I loved his lucid crazy. That was fantastic. Blubbering crazy, boring Jaffa. What a waste. But yeah, I think Bray is doing a really good job here, and I empathize with his struggle. I really do.
That brings us to our final thoughts of the episode.
I don't understand. I mean, you said you needed more time, and I gave you more time, and you apologised, and we have a lovely evening together.
It was a lovely evening.
Well, Ellie, I told you I thought about this, and I thought about you all the time.
Well, maybe I'm nervous that I won't live up to your dreams.
Ellie, that's stupid.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry.
And cuts the night short with her excuses, before immediately going to Luke and telling him that he's the one she loves, kissing him right where Jack can see.
Why right in front of his door? Fine, I am fine with you making your decision, realizing in that moment that even when Jack is at his best, he's not the one. Fine, that's okay. And running out, just needing to get away from him. Couldn't you run further? Did you guys have to do this right in front of him? What the frick is wrong with the two of you? I get it. I guess your passions have run away with you. There was a wall.
Love.
There's Luke once again lurking, waiting for his grand entrance. What the frick, Luke? Just once, I would like you to be in a room.
He was spying on them.
He's spying on them all night. And Luke, stop being a creeper, okay? He makes his grand entrance once again. She runs out of the room, and where is he? He's been behind the wall waiting. Jesus, Luke.
Luke never looks good. He never looks good in any of this.
The only thing he's missing is jumping out in front of her. They just pull her behind the wall. Pull her behind the wall. Okay? That's all I ask. All right?
Yeah.
Jack should not have to see this.
This is just cruel.
No.
This is cruel.
It is. This whole thing has been quite unnecessary, I would say.
Sorry. I get it. Again, she's like, I just need to get away from him. I've realized in this second, I can't fake it. I can't fake it. I was trying up to the moment we were kissing and he was trying to push for more and even seemed annoyed that I was like, I don't want more right now. Thank you for dinner. And it has to get away from him. I understand that. Tomorrow you can tell him it's over. You know what I mean? But dude, walk behind the wall before you start sucking face with your true love. Because, hello, Jack doesn't have a door. All he has to do is look up and he would see you. Like, come on. Oh.
This girl just has no common sense at all, does she? It's
It's not just her though, is it? It's like you say, Luke has been stalking the whole dinner. He's been like, he might as well have been their server.
It's so creepy to know that Luke was. It's so creepy to know that their whole dinner, Luke was just behind the wall, listening, peeking behind the window.
He's in the walls.
It's not a coincidence he's there when Ellie comes running out of that room.
No.
That's not a coincidence. He's been spying on them the whole night, and there's something really creepy about
it's
that.
Like he was waiting for this.
Hoping for it, wanting to see how this would play out. Maybe it's just because he's dramatic and he wanted to see the pain for himself. You know what I mean? He wanted to see Ellie choose Jack. Oh, my heart can't take it. I can't help it. You know what I mean? Like he just needed to see it. And then instead, his dream comes true. She comes running out. And then he does this baller boss move by claiming her in front of Jack's door. Jesus, Luke! Luke! Oh my gosh!
Jack deserves. See, this moment, this right here, is why, to me, Ellie will never be good enough for Jack. Especially after this moment.
Oh, I've seen way worse.
He did not deserve this.
No, he didn't. He did not deserve this. Oh my gosh.
This boy tried his best. He tried his very, very best, to the point he even got KC involved to help him with this.
Ugh.
I mean, come on.
That was just unnecessary.
She should have just told him, look.
Yeah, it was the perfect time to tell him. Because it had gone far enough. She knew she couldn't play it anymore. So at this point, she knows that she can't be in a relationship with him. He's done hearts, he's done flowers, he's the nicest version of Jack we've ever pretty much seen, right? And she now knows that there's no amount of that will rekindle what she once felt for him. This is the time to tell him. It's not a very nice time. It's a horrible time, surrounded by all of his good intentions and hope. Then you're just going to break his heart. But the thing is, it's better than what she actually did.
Yes.
Which
so
was
much
run
kinder.
away. You know, yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
this was the time.
I agree. Like
Telling him would have been kinder.
I make many, defenses for Ellie and how she handled this, but I will say, like, you were willing to walk away in this moment. You knew in this moment he's not the one. This wasn't something you had to continue thinking about. All the other times, I give you the defense. You still weren't sure. You were still trying to figure it out. But in that moment that you push him away, you knew.
She knows.
You know he's not it. Now is the time to tell him, Yeah.
So tell him why. Tell him why you feel like this. Tell him why it's gone on for this long. Be honest. Say, look, I didn't know, and this is going to really sound really bad. I didn't know until this moment, and I can't do this to you. It's not right.
I can't do this. I'm sorry, Jack. I tried, and this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
I don't feel the same. I'm so sorry. And then run off and jump into Luke's arms or whatever, he's probably in the water fountain waiting for you. Like, but like, seriously, it was just so unnecessary to have Jack see it like this. I get some things are just done for drama and they can be fun, but this one, I don't enjoy this. Jack did not deserve to find out like this.
No.
You had right then and there was the best time to tell him. The moment you realized and you were about to run into the arms of another person. It'd be different if she was realizing it in that moment and went back to her room to sleep on it, and then it was like, I'm prepared. I'm going to tell him tomorrow. Like, I've made my decision. Yeah. But her intention was to run out of the room straight toward Luke. She didn't know where Luke was going to be hiding, but she was going straight for Luke.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's who she was going to tell him. I tried. I can't. I love you. Okay, great. then you know, like, you weren't going to go sleep on this. You didn't need any more time. You definitely should have said something to Jack before you left that room instead of running away from it. And not cool. And Luke, you're even worse because you were hiding behind the wall. You were creeping him all night. You could have pulled her discreetly behind the wall.
Mm-hmm.
For me, Luke comes out as the worst. He is the worst in this trip. Like, Jack has done absolutely nothing. Yes, I'd say Ellie has let it go on for too long and she should have been more honest. But like we said, she wasn't sure about her own feelings. But Luke, there is no excuse for Luke's behaviour.
Especially with the way he felt the need to tell Jack earlier, I love her.
Yeah.
I would do anything to get her, but she doesn't love me. It felt a little bit like a peacock preening by kissing her right in front of Jack's door. I'm not saying that that's what he was thinking. Again, they were likely both just caught up in the moment in their being young and insensitive and just too involved in themselves. But holy crap, Jack doesn't have a door. He could have seen you at any moment. And this is where you chose to kiss. This is where you chose to confess your love.
He does also openly lie to Jack because he knows that Ellie doesn't feel that way about him. And he lies to him by saying what he says. So not only does he say, hey, I could get your girl anytime I want if she wanted me. But like, she doesn't want me, she wants you. But that's a lie. The first bit is true. She actually just wants him. She doesn't want you. And the fact that everybody in the mall knows this to some extent, they all are aware. You know, and it's unbelievably cruel.
Well, it is possible that he doesn't know that Ellie doesn't want Jack. I think from Luke's perspective and most people's perspective, Ellie is conflicted between the two of them. Like, he does lie and say that Ellie doesn't love him, but I don't think he's lying and saying that, like, oh, she only wants you. I think he believes Ellie's conflicted between the two of them, which is why he tells her, you need to be with Jack. It's what's right for you. It's a given to him that she still loves Jack. And she's just, who do I choose? I care about both of you or whatever. So I do think he actually does think she's conflicted between the two of them, which that is what she is. You know, only Ellie's the one who realizes, oh, my feelings for Jack just aren't there anymore. You know, but still, it was a crass move. And even though you're young and you're, like I said, your passions got away with you, it's an a-hole move on both of your parts. Definitely.
Yeah.
You're both the a-hole in this Reddit post, okay? There were so many private places you could have gone off to kiss. Anywhere that Jack, all he had to do is turn his head and see you. Come on. You could have done this anywhere.
One thing I really liked in the scene between Ellie and Jack is that they remembered that she was a journalist and that was her ambition, to be a journalist and a writer. And the version of the world that Jack was sort of conjuring is not one that we haven't seen in a long time in the tribe, which was not just like basic sort of survive, have a bunch of babies and be happy. It was like, no, we are the sort of people who are going to make the world a better place. I'm going to do it with my science and you're going to do it by being a fabulous journalist. And I thought it was interesting. I really like that. But anyway.
There's so many things going on in my head right now. Like, I was thinking back to before Jack was taken by the Chosen and sent away, how much Liz hated Jack and his whole behavior.
Yeah, he was a dick.
Yeah, and then combined with how Jack is now. Now, we've spoken earlier about the growth some characters went through, like, and how they had issues and suddenly they come back and they don't have those issues anymore. And I think there's something similar with Jack, because whereas Jack seemed like an insensitive prick at times before he was gone, he's different now. He's back, he's hopeful, he's, sensitive, caring, mad at the people he should be mad at. But it's like, yeah, Jack has grown a lot while he was away. And I just really liked seeing that.
Me too.
This whole new side of caring Jack.
It's nice to like Jack. I'll just say.
Yeah.
It's nice to like him.
Yeah, and then to have Ellie treat him like this, it's just, I just can't with that girl. Why do you do that just right in front of him? It's like, you were raised better, Ellie. Alice might not have done a good job at being a big sister the past season, but you were taught better than this.
Actually, we don't know if she was. Because remember, Ellie could be quite insensitive too, just like Jack. That's why they were such a great match with each other. But we don't know if she was taught how to be a better person.
But this level of insensitive.
Again, I don't like. I just think it was badly written to have them do this right here. It written as though she needs to run away from him. She needs to find Luke. She just happens to find Luke right here because he's spying on them, and their passions run away with them. So I mean, it's messed up, but I do feel like that's a lot of just writing going for that dramatic moment so that that's how Jack finds out. The writing wanted Jack to find out this way. That is why Ellie never tells him. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, that's what they wanted,
I mean, Ellie could have gone to her room with Luke, and Jack could have come after her,
Yeah,
I didn't have to be right in...
And see, this is where I think Thompson had a really good point when she was saying that the way the narrative is painting Ellie to be the bad guy here it smacks of misogyny, because there was definitely a way to have Jack catch them kissing that doesn't make Ellie seem like just she doesn't care. You know what I mean? Like, I was thinking your idea, Sabine, where she goes to her room, or even maybe she tries to go to Luke's room, but Jack, because he's working on that apology, he that's why he's leaving the room. That's why he sees them, because he's going to see Ellie so he can apologize. If he had caught them somewhere private kissing, I think that would have worked way better if the narrative wasn't insistent on painting Ellie as, a ruinous woman, and that's why I said the narrative wants him to catch them like this, and it really does make Ellie look bad. But there was a way to do it where it would have been fair to both characters, but they didn't want to do that. A way they could have shown that, of course, Ellie would not do this right in front of Jack, because I don't think she would have. I personally don't think that's something she'd do, but I get it. They wanted the drama, but they could have still had it without painting Ellie as the bad guy. You could still feel bad for Jack. His heart could still be broken. You could still be like, Ellie, you should have told him. This is not how he should have found out. But this feels so deliberate to have her and Luke kiss literally right outside Jack's door. He only takes 2 steps and he can see them. Like, come on. And I just that's why I agree with Thompson that this does smack of misogyny. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. I wish Jack hadn't found out this way regardless. I wish Ellie had just told him, even if I get it, even if I understand it, I wish Jack did not deserve to find out like this at all. I'm like, why? Why did you have to have him find out this way? I guess it's dramatic.
Just the drama.
I guess, but
I think them doing it this way is one of the main reasons why I can never get over my dislike of Ellie.
Like, I think of other ways for, like, that, again, could have painted Ellie in a better light and still give you your drama. Like, if she had said, Jack, I can't do this. I'm sorry. Things aren't the same. I really am sorry, and then she leaves and she and Luke are somewhere, his room, her room, wherever. But Jack obviously is like, wait, what? You know what I mean? It makes sense that he would go after her and then he finds them. It would still suck for Jack, but at least in that point, it's like Ellie did tell him. You know what I mean? She at least was honest with him first before running off with Luke. But,
I'd make one adjustment to that scene, Liz, which I think is perfect. But I would say, rather than seeing them kiss, I think if he would come into Ellie's room and overhear her saying to Luke, I can't do it, it's you I love, instead of the kiss.
You still have your drama, but you'd be being fair to the characters. But then again, I think the writers always have had a soft spot for Jack, because even when Jack was at his worst, the narrative was often still in his corner. Like, even when he was being toxic toward Ellie, terrible toward Dal, just insensitive and rude to everybody, the narrative never really ever called him out on it. The narrative was still like, no, he's a nice guy. And I was like, no, he's not. He's awful. I wouldn't want my daughter dating Jack. He's terrible. I get the feeling that Jack was a little bit favored, because he always got some pretty decent writing. He always had plots. He always had stuff to do. And so I guess when you look at it through that lens, I totally understand why Ellie has to be the bad guy in their breakup. It cannot be fair. It cannot be Ellie cannot be given a lot of empathy. She's the bad guy because they love Jack, and it is what it is. But I am sorry for Jack. I don't even care who Ellie is with. I'm sorry that Jack had to find out that the person he loves doesn't love him this way.
That brings Series 3, Episode 39 to a close. Thank you very much to the panel, and if you'd like to take part in a future episode of the podcast, please just send us a message on our Facebook page, on Instagram, or on our website. Just search for thetribe.co.uk. So we'll see you next time for episode 40. Until then, bye.
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 Bye.